Officer cared for a lost girl without knowing she was a billionaire's daughter. Michael Johnson was finishing his shift at the Central Plaza of Santa Monica when he spotted a small figure curled up on a bench near the fountain. The girl couldn't have been more than 5 years old, clutching a worn-out teddy bear tightly. When she lifted her tear-filled eyes and murmured something, his heart raced. The child was completely lost, unable to explain where she lived or how she had ended up there alone. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Michael knelt to her level, careful not to scare her with his uniform. She just shook her head, hugging the teddy bear even tighter. Her clothes were high quality, a well-kept beige coat and shoes that looked expensive, but she was visibly shaken. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Emily," she whispered, barely audible. "Emily is a beautiful name. Where's your mommy?" The girl started crying harder, repeating one word between sobs. "Grandma. I want my grandma." Michael scanned the plaza, but no one was searching for a child. It was almost 7 in the evening, and the crowd was thinning. He needed to take her to the police station and try to locate her family. "Emily, do you want to come with me? I'll help you find your grandma, okay?" She hesitated for a moment, but something in Michael's calm voice reassured her. She reached out her tiny hand, and he held it gently. On the way to the police car, Michael tried to get more information, but Emily only repeated that she wanted her grandma and lived in a big house. When he asked about her parents, she grew even sadder and said they went traveling far away. At the police station, the night shift was busy with minor incidents. Michael introduced Emily to the clerk on duty, Steve, who was immediately moved by the situation. "Has anyone reported a missing child?" Michael asked. "Nothing yet. I'll check the records," Steve replied while Emily clung to Michael's leg. Hours passed with no leads. Emily ate a sandwich they bought from a nearby bakery and answered basic questions, but nothing helped locate her family. She only said she lived in a house with lots of rooms and a big garden. By 9 o'clock, Michael was seriously worried. The girl was tired and scared, and sleeping at the police station wasn't right. He thought of Sarah, his wife, who was 7 months pregnant at home. "Steve, I'm taking her home tonight. We'll keep searching tomorrow." "Michael, are you sure this could cause trouble? She can't stay here, it's just one night." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Emily fell asleep on the way to Michael's house, nestled in the back seat of the police car with her teddy bear. When they arrived, Sarah was on the porch, worried about her husband's delay. "Michael, what's going on?" Sarah asked, seeing him step out of the car with a child in his arms. "I found her lost at the plaza. We couldn't locate her family. I couldn't leave her at the station." Sarah, though pregnant and tired, immediately opened her arms to Emily. She had a huge maternal heart and couldn't turn away a child in need. Emily woke up in the middle of the night screaming. Michael and Sarah rushed to the living room where she had been sleeping on the couch and found her in complete panic. "I don't want to go back, I don't want to go back," she cried between sobs. "Emily, you're safe here with us," Sarah said, scooping her up and rocking her gently. "No one will hurt you." "The bad lady, she locks me in the dark room." Michael and Sarah exchanged worried glances. When Emily calmed down, Sarah noticed strange marks on the girl's arm, as if someone had held her too tightly. The next morning, while Emily played in the small backyard of the house, Sarah took a closer look at the child's clothes. The jacket had a tag from an expensive brand, and in the pocket, she found a crumpled piece of paper with handwritten numbers. "Michael, look at this." She showed him the paper with the sequence 281507. It could be an incomplete phone number, or maybe a date, a code. Emily approached when she saw the paper, and her eyes widened. "It's from Grandma's safe. She taught me because she said I could never forget." "Safe?" Michael knelt beside her. "Emily, your grandma has a safe." "Yes, in the big house. She keeps important things there. She said one day everything would be mine." The situation was getting more complicated. Michael knew he needed to investigate further, but something told him Emily was running from something, not just lost. During breakfast, Emily shared more details. She lived with her grandparents in a very big house, but they traveled a lot. When that happened, she was left alone with the mean lady, who locked her in her room and called her a problem. "How did you leave the house, Emily?" Sarah asked carefully. "I jumped out of my bedroom window. I just wanted to find my grandma." Michael decided to take Emily back to the police station to conduct a broader search. Maybe with more details, they could locate this big house and her grandparents. When they arrived at the police station, they saw the commotion. An elegant woman around 60 years old was in tears at the front desk. "Please, my granddaughter is missing. She's 5 years old with brown hair." Emily immediately hid behind Michael, whispering, "That's not my grandma, that's not my grandma." Michael approached the woman, who wore fine clothes and expensive jewelry. She introduced herself as Mrs. Catherine Harrison, and when she saw Emily, her eyes filled with tears. "Emily, my darling, where have you been?" She tried to step closer, but the child shrank back even more. "Ma'am, the girl says you're not her grandmother," Michael said cautiously. "Not her grandmother? She's my granddaughter. She disappeared yesterday afternoon from our house. I've been desperate." Mrs. Harrison showed documents and photographs proving she was indeed Emily's grandmother. But the girl's reaction was unsettling. "I don't want to go. I don't want to go with her." Emily began to cry, clinging to Michael's leg. "Emily, she's your grandma. Look at the pictures," Steve tried to explain. "She lets the mean lady hurt me. She doesn't protect me." Mrs. Harrison seemed genuinely confused and hurt by her granddaughter's words. "Emily, sweetheart, what mean lady are you talking about? At home, we only have Mrs. Jenkins, who takes care of you with all the love." "Lies. She hits me and locks me in my room, and you always travel and leave me alone with her." The situation was tense. Michael sensed something was very wrong, but Mrs. Harrison's documents seemed legitimate. She was indeed Emily's legal guardian. "Ma'am, I'll need you to wait while we verify some details," Michael said diplomatically. "Verify what? She's my granddaughter. I have all the documents. You can't stop me from taking her home." At that moment, a black limousine pulled up in front of the police station. The driver quickly stepped out to open the rear door, and from it emerged a commanding man around 65, dressed in expensive suits with an air of power. "Richard Harrison," he introduced himself firmly. "I'm Emily's grandfather. I've come to take my granddaughter home." Everyone at the police station turned to the newcomer. It was obvious he was someone very wealthy and influential. Michael felt Emily trembling behind him. "Mr. Harrison," said the police chief, who had just arrived. "What an honor to have you here. Of course, you may take your granddaughter." "Hold on," Michael interjected. "The child is clearly distressed and claims to be abused. We need to investigate further." Richard Harrison stared at him coldly. "Investigate what, officer? I'm Richard Harrison, one of the most prominent businessmen in this country. My granddaughter disappeared from home and we're desperate. What kind of investigation is this?" "The girl says she's mistreated when you travel," Michael insisted. "That's absurd. Emily has the best of everything, the finest education, the best caregiver. Mrs. Jenkins has worked for our family for over 10 years. Emily began crying louder when she heard Mrs. Jenkins' name. "She's mean. She hurts me. Please, don't take me back there." Richard Harrison lost his patience. "Enough of this nonsense. Emily is a spoiled child who makes up stories when she doesn't get her way. Officer, hand over my granddaughter immediately, or I'll sue this entire police station." The police chief looked visibly uncomfortable. On one side, one of the most powerful men in the region was threatening lawsuits. On the other, one of his best officers was defending a child who was clearly terrified. "Michael, maybe it's best if—" "No," Michael stood firm. "Something's wrong here. Look at her. She's terrified." Sarah, who had just arrived with a snack for Emily, witnessed the whole argument. Seeing the girl in despair, she didn't hesitate to stand by her husband. "Emily, come here, sweetheart." She held out her arms, and the girl ran to her. "Who is this woman?" Richard Harrison asked, irritated. "I'm Officer Johnson's wife, and Emily spent the night at our house. I can tell you she's traumatized by something." "Traumatized?" Mrs. Catherine stepped forward. "Emily has always been a difficult child since she lost her parents. Mrs. Jenkins does her best, but she's very rebellious." "Lost her parents?" Sarah asked. "They died in a car accident 2 years ago. Since then, Emily has lived with us," Richard Harrison explained. And now enough, I'm taking my granddaughter home." He moved towards Sarah, but Emily clung to her desperately. "Please, don't make me go. They won't protect me from the mean lady." It was then that Sarah noticed something no one else had seen before. As she comforted Emily, she clearly saw marks on the girl's wrists, as if she'd been tied up. "Michael, look at this," she whispered, discreetly showing him. Michael saw the marks and his blood boiled. These weren't old marks, they were fresh. "Mr. Harrison, I'll need you to wait. There's evidence of abuse and I have to investigate." "Evidence? What evidence?" Richard exploded. "You're just an officer. You have no authority to tell me what to do with my own granddaughter." "I absolutely have the authority to protect a child." Michael stood his ground. "And that's exactly what I'm going to do." The tension in the police station was at its peak. The police chief was torn between supporting his subordinate and avoiding trouble with a powerful man. Mrs. Catherine was crying, Richard Harrison was threatening lawsuits, and Emily was sobbing in Sarah's arms. Then the station phone rang. It was a call that would change everything. "Santa Monica Police Station, shift duty," Steve answered. After a few minutes, he hung up with a serious expression. "Chief, I need to speak with you." The two stepped aside for a private conversation. Richard Harrison took the chance to approach Emily again. "Emily, stop this tantrum. We're going home now." "No," she screamed. "I don't want Mrs. Jenkins to hurt me again." "Mrs. Jenkins has never hurt you, Emily. You're making up stories." "I'm not making it up. She tied me to the bed when I tried to leave the room. She said I was a bad girl." Mrs. Catherine paled at this. "Richard, could it be—" "Don't be ridiculous, Catherine. Emily has always had a wild imagination. Remember when she said she saw her mother in the garden?" Michael noticed something in Mrs. Catherine's reaction. She seemed genuinely worried, unlike her husband, who dismissed everything as lies. The police chief returned with Steve, both with serious expressions. "Mr. Harrison, that call was from the hospital. An employee from your home, a certain Margaret Jenkins, was admitted to the emergency room an hour ago with severe injuries. She claimed she was attacked by criminals, but the doctors suspect she's lying about something." Silence fell over the police station. Richard Harrison seemed surprised, but tried to maintain his composure. "Mrs. Jenkins is hurt? How?" "She's hospitalized and asked to speak to the police. She said she had something important to say about the family she works for." Emily, who was listening to everything, whispered to Sarah, "Did the mean woman get hurt?" "Why do you call her a mean woman, Emily?" Sarah asked gently. "Because she hits me when I'm sad. She says crying is for weak children, and when I tell Grandma, she says I'm lying." Mrs. Catherine could no longer hold back her tears. "Richard, what if it's true? What if she really—" "Catherine, don't be naive. Emily is a child who craves attention ever since her parents passed away. Mrs. Jenkins is a saint." "She's no saint, Grandpa." Emily spoke directly to Richard for the first time. "She hurts me and says you don't even like me. Says you only keep me at home because you have to." The girl's words hit Richard Harrison like a slap. For the first time, he truly looked at his granddaughter, noticing her genuine fear. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The police chief decided it was time to hear Margaret Jenkins at the hospital. He ordered Emily to stay at the police station until they clarified the situation, which infuriated Richard Harrison. "This is absurd. I'll call my lawyers." "Mr. Harrison, it's just until we sort out the facts," the police chief said diplomatically. Michael offered to go to the hospital to question Margaret. Sarah decided to stay at the station with Emily, who didn't want to be separated from her. At the hospital, Michael found a woman around 50 years old with injuries to her face and arms. She seemed nervous when she learned he was there because of Emily. "Mrs. Jenkins, I need you to tell me exactly what happened to you and also about your relationship with Emily Harrison." Margaret hesitated for a moment, then began to cry. I didn't want it to come to this." "Come to what, Mrs. Jenkins?" "Emily is a difficult girl, officer. Very spoiled, disobedient. Her employers travel a lot and I'm left alone with her. Sometimes I lose my patience." "Did you hit the girl?" Just gave her a few spankings when she wouldn't obey. Nothing serious. Did you ever tie her to the bed? Margaret looked down. Just once. She was being very rebellious, trying to run away. I tied her up so she wouldn't hurt herself. Michael felt a knot in his stomach. Emily had been telling the truth. And your injuries? How did they really happen? I fell down the stairs while looking for Emily. When I saw she'd run away, I panicked. Her employers had just left. You weren't attacked by thieves? No. I made that up because I was afraid of losing my job. The Harrisons are important people. Michael returned to the station with information confirming Emily's account. Margaret had confessed to mistreating the girl, even if she tried to downplay the severity. When he relayed everything to the police chief, Richard Harrison was present and heard every word. This can't be true, he murmured, seeming truly shaken for the first time. Mr. Harrison, your employee confessed to abusing Emily. The marks on the girl's body confirm the mistreatment. Richard looked at Emily, who was playing quietly with Sarah on the other side of the police station. For the first time, he truly saw his granddaughter. I didn't know. Margaret had worked for us for so long. Emily had tried to tell us many times, said Mrs. Catherine, also shaken, but I always thought it was just a child's imagination. We all failed this girl, admitted Richard, his voice choked. Michael knelt beside Emily. Emily, now everyone knows you were telling the truth. Mrs. Jenkins won't hurt you anymore. Is she coming back to the big house? Emily asked, still afraid. No, sweetheart. She's not coming back. Emily seemed relieved, but still eyed her grandparents warily. Richard Harrison approached slowly, as if afraid to scare his granddaughter. Emily, Grandpa didn't know Mrs. Jenkins was hurting you. If I'd known, I would never have allowed it. You're never home to know, Emily replied with painful honesty. You're right. Grandpa works too much and leaves you alone. That's going to change. Really? Yes. I promise. Mrs. Catherine also stepped closer, tears in her eyes. Emily, Grandma promises too. We'll never leave you alone with someone who could hurt you again. Emily looked at Sarah as if asking permission to believe them. It's true, Emily. They mean it, Sarah said gently. But Emily wasn't convinced. Years of being dismissed made trust hard now. What if you travel again and bring another bad lady? Richard and Catherine exchanged glances, realizing the depth of the trauma their neglect had caused. Emily, Richard said in the softest voice he could muster, Grandpa promises not to travel so much anymore, and when I do, you'll come with me and Grandma. Really? Really? Just then, Sarah felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. The stress of recent days and the emotional toll were affecting her pregnancy. Michael, she called, leaning against the wall. Sarah, what's wrong? I think the baby's coming. Panic filled the police station. Michael rushed to support his wife while Emily grew frantic seeing Sarah in pain. Is she going to be okay? Emily asked, crying. Yes, sweetheart, Sarah managed through the pain. The baby's just in a hurry to meet us. Seeing the situation, Richard didn't hesitate. My driver can get you to the hospital faster than an ambulance. Come on. Michael hesitated for a second, but Sarah needed help urgently. They accepted the businessman's offer, and everyone headed to the nearest private hospital together. During the ride, Emily held Sarah's hand, worried. Mrs. Catherine was moved by her granddaughter's maturity and tenderness towards someone she'd only known for 2 days. Emily, you really care about Sarah, don't you? Mrs. Catherine asked. She's nice to me. She hugs me and doesn't yell when I cry. The girl's simple words struck her grandparents deeply, making them realize how much they'd failed. At the hospital, Sarah was taken in immediately. The baby was indeed coming, but doctors stabilized the situation. It would be a premature but controlled delivery. In the waiting room, Emily stayed close to Michael, who was visibly worried. Uncle Michael, is the baby coming today? Emily asked. Looks like it, kiddo. Can I be the baby's friend? Of course you can. Richard watched their interaction, noticing how safe Emily felt with the police officer. There was a genuine affection he'd never seen his granddaughter show before. Officer Johnson, Richard called. May I speak with you? They stepped aside. Richard seemed to have something important to say. "I want to thank you for protecting Emily. If it weren't for you, we would never have known what was happening. I just did my duty, Mr. Harrison. No, it was more than that. Or, you genuinely cared about her. Something we failed to do." Michael didn't know how to respond. "Emily needs time to trust you again. It was very traumatic for her." "I know, and that's why I want to make a proposal." "What proposal?" "I'd like you and your wife to continue being part of Emily's life. She clearly formed a bond with you in just 2 days, something we couldn't do in 2 years." "Mr. Harrison, I'm not sure if that would be appropriate. Please consider it. Emily needs people who genuinely care about her, and it's obvious you do." Before Michael could answer, a doctor appeared with news about Sarah. "Family of Sarah Johnson." "That's me," Michael said eagerly. "Everything went well. Your wife gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Both are doing fine, despite the premature delivery." Emily jumped for joy when she heard the baby had been born. "It's a girl. I'll have a baby friend." Everyone smiled at the girl's spontaneous reaction. Michael felt relieved and emotional. When they were allowed to visit Sarah, Emily insisted on going along. Seeing the baby in Sarah's arms, her eyes filled with wonder. "She's so tiny," Emily whispered. "Do you want to give her a name?" Sarah asked, knowing Emily needed to feel included. "Can I?" Emily looked at Michael for approval. "Of course you can. Then she'll be Hope, because she was born when I found you, and you gave me hope." Everyone in the room was moved by the girl's words. Richard Harrison, in particular, seemed deeply touched. In the days that followed, while Sarah and Hope recovered in the hospital, Emily split her time between her grandparents and Michael. Slowly, she began opening up more to Richard and Mrs. Catherine, especially after they dismissed Mrs. Jenkins and started dedicating more time to their granddaughter. Richard drastically cut back on his business trips and began working more from home. Mrs. Catherine, who had always been closer to Emily but couldn't protect her out of fear of confronting her husband, now became more assertive. "Richard, I need to tell you something," Mrs. Catherine said one evening while Emily slept in the guest room at Michael and Sarah's house, where she had asked to stay until she felt safe enough to return. "What is it?" "I always suspected something was wrong with Mrs. Jenkins. Emily tried to tell me things several times, but I was afraid you'd think I was being paranoid." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you always said Emily was imaginative, that she made up stories for attention. I started doubting my own judgment." Richard realized his authoritarian attitude and constant absences had created an environment where even his wife feared confronting him with legitimate concerns. "Catherine, I failed as a grandfather and as a husband. My obsession with work blinded me to what truly matters. We can still change that, Richard. Emily is still young." "You're right, and I'll start now." The next day, Richard did something he'd never done in his adult life. He cancelled all his business meetings for the week to spend time with Emily. At first, the girl was wary of her grandfather's sudden change in behavior, but little by little she began to open up. "Grandpa, why didn't you ever play with me before?" Emily asked as they worked on a puzzle together. "Because Grandpa thought working hard was the way to take care of you, but I was wrong. Will you play with me more now?" "Yes, I will. And I'll teach you a few things about business too when you're a little older." "Can I help Grandpa with work?" "Of course you can. You can be my special consultant." Emily laughed, a genuine laugh that Richard hadn't heard in a long time. Meanwhile, Sarah was recovering well at home with little Hope. Emily visited her every day and was extremely careful and affectionate with the baby. "Sarah, can I tell you a secret?" Emily said one day while helping feed Hope her bottle. "Of course, sweetheart. I always wanted a little sister, ever since Mom and Dad left. Emily, you know your parents didn't leave on purpose, right? They had an accident." "I know, but sometimes I pretended they had just gone on a trip because it hurt less." Sarah held Emily's hand tenderly. "It's normal to miss them, but now you have so many people who love you. Your grandparents, me, Michael, and Hope." "That's true. Now I have a big family." Just then, Richard arrived to pick up Emily. He had established a routine where he picked up his granddaughter every evening after spending his mornings focused on work. "How was your day?" Richard asked, noticing how relaxed and happy Emily looked. "I helped take care of Hope. She even smiled at me." "Really?" Richard leaned closer to the baby who was in Emily's arms. "Wow, she really is beautiful. Grandpa, would you like to have baby grandchildren too?" The question caught Richard off guard. He had never stopped to think about it. "Why do you ask, Emily?" "Because I think you'd like taking care of babies. You're learning how to take care of me, and I'm already big." Richard smiled, recognizing his granddaughter's simple wisdom. "Maybe one day, Emily. For now, I'm learning to be a better grandpa for you." That night, Richard talked to Catherine about the future. "Catherine, Emily is thriving with this new routine. Maybe we should consider making some permanent changes." "What kind of changes?" "How about we sell the big house and buy something smaller, cozier? A place where Emily can truly feel at home, not lost in empty hallways." "You'd do that?" "For Emily, I'd do anything." However, when Richard suggested the move to Emily, she had an unexpected reaction. "But Grandpa, I like the big house now that the mean lady isn't there anymore." "You really do?" "Yes, it just felt too empty when you weren't around. Now that you're home more, it feels happy." Richard realized another important lesson. The problem had never been the house, but the emotional absence of the family. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 weeks later, when Sarah had fully recovered, an unexpected situation arose. A social worker showed up at Michael's house for a routine visit. "Good morning. I'm Jennifer Wilson from Child Protective Services. We received a report about a child who stayed here." Michael and Sarah grew uneasy. They hadn't considered the legal implications of caring for Emily. "Is this about Emily Harrison?" Sarah asked. "Exactly. We need to assess the conditions the child was kept in and check for any irregularities." Emily, who was playing with Hope, sensed the tension in the air. "Is something wrong?" she asked worriedly. "No, sweetheart. Miss Jennifer just wants to talk for a bit," Sarah said, trying to reassure her. During the interview, Jennifer questioned Michael's actions, suggesting he should have taken Emily to a temporary shelter instead of his home. "Officer Johnson, even with good intentions, the correct procedure would have been—" "I wasn't going to let a 5-year-old sleep in a shelter when she was clearly traumatized," Michael interrupted. "I understand your motivation, but there are protocols. Protocols that sometimes forget we're dealing with human beings, not paperwork." Jennifer seemed a bit offended, but continued her evaluation. When she interviewed Emily, the girl was very clear about her feelings. "Emily, did you feel safe at Uncle Michael and Aunt Sarah's house?" "I did. They took care of me when I was scared." "And how do you feel now with your grandparents?" "Now they're different. Grandpa plays with me and Grandma listens when I talk." "Different how?" "Before they weren't home much. Now they are. And they don't let anyone hurt me." Jennifer took many notes and said she'd return with an assessment in a few days. After she left, Michael grew worried. "Sarah, what if they think we did something wrong? What if they try to stop us from seeing Emily?" "Michael, we did what was right. Emily was in danger and we protected her." "But you heard what she said about protocols." That night, Richard called Michael. "Officer Johnson, I heard about Child Protective Services visit. I want you to know I'm on your side in this situation." "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Actually, I've been thinking about a proposal that could resolve everything permanently." "What proposal?" "I'd like you and Sarah to become Emily's official godparents. And more than that, I'd like to formalize a shared custody arrangement." Michael was surprised. "Shared custody? Emily has formed a special bond with you. It would be unfair to break that, and frankly, you've brought something to her life that we're still learning to provide." "Mr. Harrison, that's very generous, but it's not generosity, officer. It's recognition. Emily has been happier these past weeks than in the last 2 years. I need to talk to Sarah." "Of course, but please consider the proposal carefully." When Michael told Sarah about the conversation, she was moved. "Michael, this would mean Emily would be like a daughter to us too. It would be a big responsibility, especially now with little Hope. But you've seen how Emily is with the baby. She'd be a wonderful big sister. And you're sure you could handle 2 children? With you by my side, I can handle anything. The next day, Jennifer returned with her assessment. To everyone's surprise, it was very positive. After evaluating the entire situation, I've concluded that the care provided by the Johnson couple was exemplary. Emily clearly benefited from the experience and developed healthy attachments. What about the protocols that were broken? Asked Michael. Protocols are important, but the child's well-being always comes first. You acted from the heart, and that saved Emily from further trauma. Jennifer had also spoken with Emily's grandparents and was impressed by the changes she observed in the family. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, it's evident you've also undergone significant transformation. Emily is visibly more secure and happy. We've learned much these past weeks, Richard admitted. And one thing we've learned is that Emily needs more people who genuinely love her. Is that why you're considering shared custody? Exactly. We want to formalize what's already happening naturally. Jennifer explained the necessary legal procedures and offered to assist with the process. A few weeks later, everyone gathered at the courthouse for the hearing that would formalize the shared custody agreement. Emily, who'd been prepared for this moment, was beaming. "Emily," said the judge, "do you understand what's happening today?" "I do. Today I get 2 official families and no more fighting about where I stay." "And you're happy about this?" "So happy. Now I can stay with my grandparents at the big house and also with Uncle Michael, Aunt Sarah and Hope at the little house." "Little house?" asked the judge, amused. "It's just that their house is small, but full of love. And my grandparents' house is big, but now it's also full of love." Everyone in the room was moved by the girl's spontaneous words. The judge granted the request, ruling that Emily would spend half the week with each family, with flexibility for special occasions. After the hearing, there was a small celebration at Michael and Sarah's house. Emily was euphoric, running from one adult to another, hugging everyone. "Now I have Grandpa Richard, Grandma Catherine, my heart dad Michael, my heart mom Sarah, and little sister Hope," Emily declared. "And there's someone else special," Richard said mysteriously. "Who?" "Hope can be your little sister, but you could also be a big sister to another baby." Emily's eyes widened. "Is Grandma having a baby?" Everyone laughed. "No, Emily," Catherine said, "but we're thinking of adopting another child who needs a family." "Really?" Emily jumped with joy. "Can I help choose?" "Of course you can. After all, you'll be the big sister." Then Emily asked a question that took everyone by surprise. "What if we adopt a child who was hurt like I was?" Richard knelt to meet his granddaughter's gaze. "Why do you ask that, Emily?" "Because if there are other kids like I was, they need families who'll take good care of them too." The girl's maturity and compassion deeply touched everyone present. "You know what, Emily? You're right. Maybe we can help more children in need." "Can I help?" "Of course. You'd be a wonderful big sister to a child who needs love." In the following months, the new family dynamic worked perfectly. Emily alternated between the 2 homes, bringing joy to both. At her grandparents' house, she helped Richard with small office tasks and learned about the family business. At Michael and Sarah's, she helped care for Hope and played in the small but cozy backyard. True to his promise, Richard established a foundation to help vulnerable children. Emily actively participated, suggesting toys and activities she thought other kids would enjoy. Michael was promoted to detective, partly in recognition of his work on Emily's case. Sarah returned to teaching, but with even greater passion, especially for children who had experienced trauma. 6 months later, Richard and Catherine finalized the adoption of Ethan, a 4-year-old boy who had been abandoned. Emily became the big sister she had promised to be, caring for him with patience and tenderness. "Emily," Richard said one day, watching his granddaughter teach Ethan to ride a bike, "are you sure you want another brother? Sometimes Ethan can be a handful." "Grandpa, when I was lost and scared, you helped me. Now it's my turn to help someone. Don't you think you already do enough?" "It's never enough when it comes to caring for people we love." Richard smiled, realizing Emily had grown into a wise and generous girl despite all she had endured. At Michael and Sarah's house, Hope grew up surrounded by Emily's love, who treated her like a blood sister. The two were inseparable when Emily was there. "Sarah," Michael said one night, watching Emily read a story to Hope, "sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't found Emily that day." "Don't think about that, Michael. What matters is that we did. And look at the result. Sometimes I think Emily saved us more than we saved her." "How so?" "She taught us about family, about unconditional love. She prepared us to be real parents." Sarah agreed. Emily had brought a depth and maturity to their lives they hadn't expected. A year after they first met in the plaza, everyone decided to hold a special celebration. They returned to the central plaza of Santa Monica, but this time as a united and happy family. Emily ran to the bench where Michael had found her, but now without fear or sadness. "This is where it all began," said Emily, smiling. "This is where our family was formed," corrected Richard. "Grandpa, can I make a wish?" "Of course, Emily. I want us to come back here every year on this day, to remember how good things can happen even when we're sad." "That's a wonderful idea," said Michael. "Let's call it Family Day. And can we bring Ethan and Hope too?" "Of course," said Sarah, holding Hope in her arms. Emily walked up to the fountain where she had cried so much a year before. Now, instead of tears of despair, there were tears of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, looking up at the sky. "Thank you for what, Emily?" asked Mrs. Catherine. "For making me find you, for giving me a real family." They all hugged around the fountain, forming a circle of love that a year ago had seemed impossible. Richard, who had always been a man focused solely on business, now understood that his greatest achievement wasn't in the companies he built, but in the family he had learned to cherish. Michael, who had always fulfilled his duty as a police officer, discovered that sometimes duty goes beyond protocol and extends to the heart. Sarah, who had always wanted to be a mother, gained not only a biological daughter, but also a daughter of the heart, who taught her about unconditional love. Mrs. Catherine, who had always felt intimidated by her authoritarian husband, found her voice and became the protective grandmother Emily needed. And Emily, who a year earlier had been a lost and hurt little girl, transformed into a confident and loving child, capable of reaching out to other children in need. That afternoon in the plaza, as Emily played with Ethan and helped care for Hope, Richard reflected deeply. "Michael, I want to thank you again." "Mr. Harrison, you've thanked me many times already." "No, let me speak. You taught me that wealth isn't just measured in money. Emily brought me riches I didn't even know existed. And Emily taught us that family isn't just about blood, but about choice and love." "Exactly. And that's why I want to make one final proposal." "What proposal?" "How about we move into neighboring houses? That way, Emily could go freely between both families and we could raise the children together." Michael was surprised by the suggestion. "That would be amazing, but Mr. Harrison, the difference in our lifestyles—" "Michael, call me Richard. And as for lifestyle, I've learned happiness has no price. If you agree, I'll handle all the financial aspects." "Richard, that's very generous, but I can't let you buy us a house." "Then how about an arrangement? You work with me at the foundation we created for children. Your salary as a special investigator for the foundation would cover the new house." Michael looked at Sarah, who was smiling and nodding in agreement. "I think we have a deal, Richard." Emily, who had overheard part of the conversation, ran to them. "Does that mean we'll live close by?" "Very close," said Richard, "with a big backyard where you can all play together." "And Hope and Ethan too?" "Of course." Emily let out a joyful shout and ran to share the news with Mrs. Catherine. 6 months later, the two families were settled in neighboring houses in a quiet neighborhood of Santa Monica. Emily had helped decorate both homes, making sure she felt equally at home in both places. The foundation created by Richard was thriving, with Michael as field coordinator and Sarah as educational coordinator. They had already helped dozens of children find loving families. Emily, now 6 years old, attended a nearby school and was known for her maturity and ability to help other children going through hardships. One day, a special situation arose at the foundation. A 5-year-old girl had been found abandoned, in circumstances very similar to Emily's a year and a half earlier. "Emily," said Richard, "a little girl has arrived at the foundation who needs a temporary family while we look for a permanent one for her. Would you like to meet her? Did she go through the same things I did?" "Very similar, yes." "Then I want to meet her. Maybe I can help her not be so afraid." When Emily met Lily, a shy and frightened little girl, she immediately connected with her. "Lily, I know how you're feeling," Emily said, approaching slowly. "I was lost and scared too." "You were?" Lily asked in a small voice. "I was. But you know what happened? I found people who truly cared for me, and now I have 2 families who love me." "2 families?" "Yes. One family is Grandpa Richard and Grandma Catherine, who live in a big house with my brother Ethan. The other family is my heart dad Michael and my heart mom Sarah, who live in a house next door with my little sister Hope." Lily was amazed. "And you're happy?" "Very happy. And you will be too. You'll see." Emily spent the whole day playing with Lily, showing her toys and telling stories about how her life had changed. "Emily," Lily said at the end of the day, "do you think I'll find a family who loves me too?" "I'm sure you will. And you know why?" "Why?" "Because there are lots of good people in the world. Sometimes it takes a little while to find them, but when you do, it's worth it." 2 weeks later, Lily was adopted by a young couple who had lost a baby and were looking for a child to love. Emily was overjoyed by the news. "See, Lily, I told you you'd find your family." "Thank you, Emily. You helped me not be so scared. Whenever you're afraid, remember what I said. There are good people in the world, and now you've found yours." After Lily left with her new family, Emily had an important reflection with Richard. "Grandpa, I want to keep helping kids like me and Lily." "How so, Emily?" "I want to work at the foundation when I grow up. I want to help lost children find their families." "That's a wonderful idea, Emily, but you're still very young." "I know, but I can start learning now. And when other kids come to the foundation, I can talk to them and show them everything will be okay." Richard was moved by his granddaughter's maturity and generosity. "You know what, Emily? You can be our special consultant for children." "Special consultant, yes. When children who need help arrive, you can talk to them and help us understand what they need." "Really? I can be a consultant even though I'm a kid?" "Of course you can. Sometimes children understand other children better than adults do." Emily was thrilled by the idea. She had finally found a way to turn her painful experience into something that could help others. In the following months, Emily became a key part of the foundation. Whenever a traumatized child arrived, she was the first to approach, offering understanding and hope. Michael was amazed watching Emily work. "Sarah, look how Emily connects with these children. It's incredible. She has a special gift. She's been through what they're going through and can offer something we adults can't, the certainty that it's possible to overcome." "Sometimes I think Emily was born for this." "No, Michael. Emily was shaped by it. The pain she went through made her someone who can heal others' pain." A year had passed, and Emily was now known in the region as the girl who helps other children. Many families who had adopted children through the foundation kept in touch with her. On the 2nd anniversary of Family Day, the celebration in the Central Plaza was much larger. Not only were Emily's 2 families present, but also several other families that had been formed through the foundation. Emily, now 7 years old, gave a simple but moving speech. "2 years ago, I was sitting on that bench," she pointed to the bench near the fountain, "crying because I was lost and scared. Today, I'm here with so many families that came together because good people decided to help." Everyone applauded. "I learned that when we're lost, it doesn't mean we'll stay lost forever. Sometimes we need to be lost to find the right place." Emily's words deeply touched everyone there. Many mothers wiped away tears as they listened to the little girl's wisdom. "So," Emily continued, "I want to tell all the children here, you found your families because you're special, and now you can help other children find their families too." After the speech, Emily was hugged by dozens of children and adults. She had become a symbol of hope and resilience. Richard, watching the scene, reflected with Michael. 2 years ago, I was a bitter man, focused only on making money. Emily taught me that true wealth is in the people we love. And 2 years ago, I was just a police officer doing my duty. Emily taught me that sometimes duty goes beyond what's written in the manuals. We've all changed because of her, haven't we? We have. And the most amazing thing is that she turned her own pain into strength to help others. That evening, Emily was at home with Michael and Sarah, playing with Hope, who was now crawling and babbling her first words. "Uncle Michael," Emily said, using the affectionate term she'd never stopped using even after the adoption. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, Emily." "Do you regret finding me that day?" The question caught Michael off guard. "Why would you ask that, Emily?" "Because sometimes I think I caused you so much trouble. First with my grandparents, then with Child Protective Services, then the move." Michael knelt to Emily's height and held her hands. "Emily, finding you was the best thing that ever happened to me, and to Sarah too. Even with all the trouble I caused. Especially because of all the trouble you caused. Because it taught us to be better people. And you don't get tired of taking care of me and Hope?" "Tired?" Sarah stepped closer, smiling. "Emily, taking care of you isn't work, it's joy. Even when I throw tantrums?" "Even when you throw tantrums," Michael laughed. "Because it means you feel safe enough to express your feelings. Remember when we first met? You barely spoke." "That's true, I was too scared to talk." "And now look at you," Sarah said. "You talk to everyone, help other kids, give speeches. I learned that when you have love, you become braver." "Exactly," Michael agreed. "And you taught us about courage too." That same night, on the other side of the yard, Richard and Mrs. Catherine were talking about the future. "Richard, are you happy with the changes we've made?" "Catherine, I've never been happier in my life. Emily gave us a second chance to be real grandparents. And Ethan is doing so well too." "Yes, he is. And you know what amazes me most? How Emily welcomed him. She could have been jealous, but it was the opposite. Emily has a very generous heart." "She does. And to think we almost missed the chance to know that generosity because of our neglect." "Richard, don't torture yourself over the past. What matters is that we've changed." "You're right. And now I want to cherish every moment with them." The next day, Emily made a proposal that surprised everyone. "Grandpa Richard, I want to learn more about the family business." "Why, Emily?" "Because when I grow up, I want to expand the foundation. I want it to help children all across the United States." Richard was impressed by his granddaughter's vision. "Emily, that's a very big project." "I know. But if we start small and grow little by little, one day we'll get there." "And how do you plan to do that?" "First, I'll learn everything about management and business from you. Then, I'll study psychology to better understand traumatized children. And I'll also study law to know the laws that protect children." Richard was stunned by the detailed planning of his 7-year-old granddaughter. "Emily, have you really thought all this through?" "I think about it all the time. When I go to sleep, I imagine what a big foundation that helps lots of children could look like." "What else do you imagine?" "I imagine there could be special homes where children stay while waiting for a family. Homes that don't feel like shelters, but like real houses." "Go on." "And I imagine there could be people like me who went through the same thing to talk to the new children. Because sometimes it's easier to trust someone who's been through it before." Richard grew even more amazed. "Emily, these are very mature ideas for a girl your age." "Grandpa, when you go through hard things, you grow up faster on the inside." "You're right. And you know what? I'll start teaching you about business for real. It's never too early to learn." "Really?" Emily jumped with joy. "Really. And I'll also teach you about social responsibility and how to use business to help people." "Thank you, Grandpa. I'll be the best student you've ever had." In the following months, Emily began having lessons with Richard every afternoon. She learned basic concepts of management, economics, and most importantly, how to use resources to create positive social impact. Michael and Sarah were amazed by Emily's dedication to learning. "Sarah, Emily is becoming a very special girl, Michael remarked. She's always been special, Michael. Now she's getting the chance to develop her full potential. Sometimes I think about the future. Emily will grow up, and maybe she won't need us anymore. Michael, family isn't about need, it's about love. She'll always be our daughter in our hearts, no matter where life takes her. You're right, and by the looks of it, life will take her to amazing places. One day, Emily made a discovery that would once again change the family dynamic. While playing in her grandparents' attic, she found a box with photos and documents of her parents. "Grandma Catherine," she called, coming downstairs with the box. "What is it, Emily?" "I found pictures of my parents. So many pictures." Catherine grew nervous. She and Richard had stored everything in the attic because they thought it would be too painful for Emily to see reminders of her parents. "Emily, maybe it's better to put that away." "Why, Grandma? They were my parents. I want to see the pictures." Richard arrived just then and saw the situation. "What's going on?" "Emily found the photos of her parents," Catherine explained. "Grandpa, why did you hide the pictures?" Emily asked with a mix of sadness and confusion. Richard sighed. It was a conversation they'd been putting off for a long time. "Emily, we thought it would be too painful for you to see the photos. We wanted to protect you from the sadness. But Grandpa, they were my parents. Even if it makes me sad, I want to remember them." Richard and Catherine realized they had made another mistake by being overprotective. "You're right, Emily. Let's look at the photos together." All afternoon, Emily flipped through the photos, asking questions about her parents and listening to the stories her grandparents told. "My mom was pretty, wasn't she?" said Emily, holding a photo. "She was absolutely beautiful," Mrs. Catherine confirmed, "and she had a huge heart just like yours." "And my dad? What was he like?" "Your father was very smart and hard-working," said Richard, "and he loved you more than anything in the world." Were they sad when they left? Richard and Mrs. Catherine exchanged glances. It was time to tell the full truth about the accident. "Emily," Richard said gently, "they didn't leave by choice. There was a car accident, and they passed away." "I know, Grandpa, but when I was little it hurt too much to think they had died. It was easier to imagine they had gone on a trip. And now it doesn't hurt anymore." "It still does, but it's a different kind of pain. It's a pain that comes with love and longing." Richard was struck by his granddaughter's emotional maturity. "Emily, we were wrong to hide the photos. We thought we were protecting you, but we were actually keeping you from your memories." "It's okay, Grandpa. You did it because you love me. Can I keep the photos in my room now?" "Of course you can. We'll even make a special album." That night, Emily took some photos to Michael and Sarah's house. "Uncle Michael, Aunt Sarah, look, I found pictures of my parents." "How beautiful, Emily," said Sarah. "Do you want to tell us about them?" "Yes." Emily began showing the photos one by one, sharing what she had learned about her parents. Michael realized something important in that moment. Emily had finally managed to piece together all parts of her story. There was no longer a contradiction between loving her late parents and loving the families who had taken her in. "Emily," Michael said, "you know that loving your parents doesn't take away from the love we have for you, right?" "I know, Uncle Michael, and loving you doesn't take away from the love I have for my parents." "Exactly. The heart has room for many kinds of love." "That's true. That's why I can love my parents, you, my grandparents, Hope, Ethan, and still have room to love the kids at the foundation." Sarah was moved by Emily's words. "Emily, you're such a wise girl. I've learned that when you love deeply, love only grows. It's not like toys, where sharing means having less. With love, sharing means having more." That night, Emily did something she hadn't done in a long time. She dreamed of her parents, but this time it wasn't a nightmare. In the dream, they were smiling and saying how proud they were of the brave girl she had become. When she woke up, instead of sadness, Emily felt peace. She ran to Michael and Sarah's room. "Uncle Michael, Aunt Sarah, can I sleep here?" "Of course, Emily. Did you have a nightmare?" "No, I had a good dream. I dreamed about my parents and they were happy." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," said Sarah, making room in the bed. "They said they're proud of me." "I'm sure they are," said Michael. You've become an amazing girl. Uncle Michael, can I ask you something I've always wondered? Of course. The day you found me in the plaza, you could have taken me straight to a shelter. Why did you bring me home? Michael thought for a moment before answering. Because when I saw you on that bench, I saw something that touched me deeply. I saw a girl who needed love, not just shelter. And you weren't afraid I'd be a handful. Emily, when you do something out of love, work becomes joy. That's why I want to help other kids. Because love changes everything. Exactly, sweetheart. Love changes everything. Emily fell asleep between Michael and Sarah, feeling completely safe and loved. There was no more fear, only gratitude for having found her place in the world. The end of the story. So, what did you think of Emily's story and how a difficult situation turned into so much love? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you know similar stories. Your like and subscription to the channel help us greatly in continuing to bring heartwarming stories.